Maya refreshed her account on a Tuesday morning, and the number read 750,000. She was 51 years old. She had been saving for 22 years. She stared. Then she did what almost everyone does at this number. She exhaled and relaxed. That exhale cost her $898,000 over the next 14 years. Not a crash, not a scam, not a bad stock pick, an exhale. Maya thought she had it figured out, 75% of the way to $1 million. The hard part was behind her. The compounding would handle the rest. That belief is the single most expensive belief in American personal finance. Because $750,000 is not a waypoint to $1 million. It is a crossover. It is the exact dollar amount where the rules invert. Before this number, your paycheck built your net worth. After it, the market does. And the market does not care how disciplined you were for 22 years. Most people never notice the switch. They keep optimizing the thing that stopped mattering. Here is what actually happens at $750,000. The Federal Reserve tracks this. Median American household net worth is $192,000. That is the middle of the entire country, $192,700. For households aged 55 to 64, the median is $364,000. So Maya, at $750,000, has roughly double her own age group's median. She is winning. That is exactly the problem. Winning feels like permission to stop. Here is the number nobody says out loud, a boring 10% market move. Not a crash. A normal, forgettable, happens every few years 10% move on her portfolio. On $750,000, that ordinary move is $75,000. $75,000 appearing or vanishing while she sleeps in a normal market. Now compare that to what Maya can actually save. She earns $118,000. The American personal saving rate in early 2026 was 4.5%. By May, it had fallen to 3% of disposable income. 3%. Maya saves more than average. She puts away $20,000 a year. So one ordinary market swing moves almost 4 years of her savings, overnight. And a 15% drawdown moves $112,500. That is more than 5 years of her disciplined saving, erased in 1 quarter. This is the crossover. Here's what the data shows about what happens next. Meet Renee, 51 years old, same March, same milestone, same $750,000. Renee earns $118,000 a year as a hospital operations manager. Maya earns $118,000 a year as a regional sales director. Both women crossed $750,000 in net worth that same spring. Both had roughly the same split, $400,000 invested, $350,000 in home equity. Both planned to retire at 65. Both had 14 years left to compound. Both saved $20,000 a year. Neither inherited a dollar. Let's keep this fair. 14 years later, Maya's net worth was $2,384,000. Renee's was $1,486,000, a gap of $898,000. Same income, same start, same savings rate, same market, same 14 years. Renee did not gamble. She did not day trade. She did not buy crypto. Renee made 5 quiet decisions in the 18 months after crossing the milestone. Every one of those decisions felt responsible at the time. Most people make them. Renee is not careless. Renee is the most responsible person in her entire family. That is the point. Responsible people make these 5 decisions more often, not less. Decision 1. Renee moved a chunk of money to a financial advisor. It felt like a milestone thing to do. $750,000 deserves professional management. The fee was 1% of assets, $7,500 a year. 1%. It sounded like a rounding error next to a 7-figure goal. Decision 2. Renee moved 12% of her portfolio into her employer's stock. She knew the company. She trusted it. She had watched it grow for years. Decision 3. Renee upgraded the house, not a mansion, a bigger house in a better district. The mortgage payment rose $460 a month. Manageable, she calculated. Decision 4. When the market dropped 30%, Renee sold and waited for clarity. Her $750,000 had become $525,000 on paper. Selling made the paper loss permanent. Waiting made the recovery permanent too, for someone else. Decision 5. Renee stayed in cash for 19 months, waiting to feel confident again. Confidence arrives after the recovery. That is the entire cruelty of the mechanism. Now here is Maya. Maya did something that looks almost lazy from the outside. Maya wrote one page. She called it her crossover page. She wrote 3 sentences. Sentence 1. My contributions no longer drive my net worth. The market does. Sentence 2. My job for the next 14 years is to not interrupt compounding. Sentence 3. Any decision that reduces my invested balance must survive one written paragraph. That is it. That is the whole plan. 1 page, 3 sentences, taped inside a cabinet. When the same 30% drop hit Maya, she read her own page. She did not add money. She did not sell. She did nothing at all. Doing nothing is not passive. Doing nothing is the hardest paid work in finance. Maya's balance also fell to $525,000. Same crash, same pain. The difference is that Maya's $525,000 was still holding shares. Renee's $525,000 was holding dollars. Dollars do not recover. When the index climbed back, Maya's shares climbed with it. Renee's cash did not. By the time Renee returned, the market was 14% above where she sold. She bought back fewer shares with the same money. That is the permanent damage. Most people think the crash caused the gap. Run the numbers. The crash was neutral. Both women lost the same $225,000 on paper that quarter. Only one of them converted a paper loss into a real one. That is the whole story. Now let's break down each of those 5 decisions with actual dollar figures. Here's what nobody tells you about $750,000. There is a crossover date. It is the day your portfolio's expected annual growth exceeds your annual contribution. Maya contributes $20,000 a year. That is unusually strong saving. At a 7% long-run return, her $750,000 grows $52,500. $52,500 of growth against $20,000 of contribution. The market is now out-earning her by 2.5 to 1 every year. At $100,000 of net worth, the ratio ran the other way. $7,000 of growth against $20,000 contributed. Her paycheck was the engine. At $285,000, growth and contribution were roughly equal. That was the real crossover point. Nobody sent her a notification. Nobody ever does. By $750,000, her savings rate has become a rounding error. If Maya doubled her savings to $40,000, the outcome barely moves. But if she loses 1.5% of return, the outcome collapses. This is the inversion. Effort stops paying. Restraint starts paying. Nobody teaches restraint. Most people spend the years after this milestone optimizing the wrong variable entirely. They chase a higher savings rate. They cut the coffee. They refinance for a quarter point. Meanwhile, a single behavioral mistake costs more than a decade of that discipline. At 7%, Maya's balance doubles roughly every 10.3 years. $750,000 becomes $1.5 million around age 61. It becomes $3 million around age 71, untouched, uninterrupted. That is the whole machine. Every year she interrupts it, she does not lose a year of growth. She loses the largest year, because the last doubling is always the biggest one. A year of interruption at 51 is not worth $52,000. Compounded forward 14 years, that missing year costs $135,000. Run the numbers on that. 1 year of hesitation, $135,000. That is the entire reason this specific milestone deserves a plan, not a celebration. Maya wrote her crossover page precisely because she understood which variable now mattered. Her contributions were no longer the story. Her behavior was the entire story. Here's a test you can run tonight in under 2 minutes. Take your invested balance, multiply it by 7%. Write down that number. Now write down what you actually contribute each year. Compare the two honestly. If growth is larger, you have already crossed. Your job already changed, quietly. Most people are years past their crossover and still budgeting like they are before it. That single mismatch is worth more than every subscription you have ever canceled. Most people track their portfolio in percentages. Percentages are emotionally safe. They feel small. A 10% drop sounds survivable. A 10% drop sounds almost routine. So translate it. On $750,000, 10% is $75,000. $75,000 is a year of after-tax income for most American households. 15% is $112,500. 20% is $150,000. And a 30% bear market is $225,000 gone. Here's what nobody tells you. Your brain never scaled up with your balance. The same nervous system that panicked over a $4,000 loss at 30 is now watching $225,000 evaporate at 51. Your risk tolerance was measured on a small portfolio. It was never retested. This is why the years around this milestone break so many disciplined savers. Financial planners call the window around retirement the red zone. The name is literal. The red zone runs roughly 5 years before retirement through 10 years after. Inside that window, the order of your returns matters more than the average return. Two portfolios can average the same 7% and end in completely different places. The one that takes its bad years first, while withdrawing, does not recover. Because selling shares in a down market means selling more shares for the same dollars. Those shares are permanently gone. They are not there for the recovery, ever. Maya was 51. Her red zone started at 60. She had 9 years. That is not a long time. It is exactly enough time to build a buffer. Here's what she actually built: 2 years of expenses in short-term bonds and cash. Roughly $110,000, deliberately earning less than the market, on purpose. Most people see that $110,000 as lazy money and want it invested. It is not lazy money. It is the thing that lets the other money stay invested. A cash buffer is not an investment. It is permission to never sell at the bottom. Renee had no buffer, so when the market dropped, her portfolio was her only option. That is why she sold. Not because she was weak, because she had no alternative. Morningstar publishes a study every year that almost nobody outside the industry reads. It is called Mind the Gap. It measures something uncomfortable and very specific. It compares what a fund returned to what the fund's actual investors returned. Those two numbers should be identical. They are never identical. They are never even close. In the 2025 edition, covering 2015 through 2024, the average fund returned 8.2% per year. The investors earned 7%. A gap of 1.2 percentage points per year, every year, for a decade. Morningstar estimates that gap equals about 15% of the fund's total gains. 15% of the gains surrendered, not to fees, not to taxes, to timing. Buying after things felt safe, selling after things felt scary. That is the whole gap. Now apply 1.2% to $750,000 over 20 years. At 8.2%, $750,000 becomes $3,627,000. At 7%, the same money becomes $2,902,000. The behavior gap alone costs $725,000 from behavior. Nearly the entire milestone surrendered by someone who did nothing obviously wrong. And the study found the gap widens with volatility. The most volatile funds showed a 1.8% annual gap. The steadiest showed 0.8%. Sector funds trailed by 1.5%. Allocation funds trailed by 0.1%. Read that last one again. Boring balanced funds had almost no behavior gap. Not because they returned more, because nobody felt the urge to touch them. Here's what nobody tells you about portfolio design after $750,000. The best portfolio is not the highest returning one. It is the least touched one. A boring portfolio you hold for 14 years beats a brilliant one you abandon. Maya's portfolio was almost embarrassingly plain. 3 funds, no sectors, no themes, no stories. Renee's had 11 positions, 2 sector funds, and her employer's stock. It was smarter. It was also touchable. Every position was an invitation to have an opinion. Complexity is not sophistication. Complexity is surface area for mistakes to land on. Decision 1 cost Renee more than any market crash in her lifetime ever did. She hired an advisor charging 1% of assets under management, standard, common, legal. On $750,000, that is $7,500. In year 1, the fee is a percentage, so it grows as the portfolio grows. Most people evaluate that fee as an annual expense. That is the framing error. 1% of assets is not 1% of your money. Run the numbers. Renee withdraws 4% in retirement. The fee is 1% of the same balance. So the advisor takes 25% of her actual spendable retirement income every year. Nobody quotes it that way because that way is impossible to sell. Now compound it. $750,000 at 7% for 25 years becomes $4,070,574. That is the clean number. The same money at 6% after the 1% fee becomes $3,218,000. The fee's true cost is $851,671. $851,000, more than the entire milestone she was protecting. The advisor did not steal it. Renee agreed to it in writing, happily. Before you dismiss it, hear this. Some advisors are worth far more than 1%. An advisor who stops one panic sale in a career earns that fee many times over. The problem is not advice. The problem is paying for advice as a percentage. A flat fee planner charging $4,000 a year gives the same guidance. The work does not double when your balance doubles. The bill does, automatically. Camille did something almost nobody does. She asked her advisor one question. What is your fee in dollars over 25 years on my balance? Not the percentage, the dollar total. Watch what happens to the room. A good advisor answers it, then explains what you get for $800,000. Some can honestly justify it. Behavior coaching, tax strategy, and estate work are real. But you cannot judge the answer until you have seen the number in dollars. Camille left, compared two flat fee planners, and paid $2,000 instead. Maya used a flat fee planner twice. 2 sessions, 11 years apart, $2,000. Decision 2 and 3 killed Renee quietly, which is how the expensive ones work. She moved 12% of her portfolio into her employer's stock, $90,000. Most people think this is loyalty. It is actually the most concentrated bet available. Her paycheck already depended on that company. Her health insurance depended on that company. Her pension credits depended on that company. Now her portfolio did too. 4 exposures. If that employer struggles, all 4 fail in the same quarter, simultaneously, by design. That is not diversification with a tilt. That is a leveraged bet on one payroll. The rule is simple and almost nobody follows it. Cap employer stock at 5%. Renee sat at 12. She told herself she understood the business better than the market. Everyone at every company believes that. It is true for maybe 1 employee in 10,000. Then decision 3, the house. This is the one that hides best in a spreadsheet. Renee upgraded to a bigger home. The payment rose $460 monthly. $460 a month is $5,520 a year. Over 14 years, that is $77,280 of payments. Invested at 7% instead, those payments become $124,000. But the payment is only the visible part. The invisible part is bigger. Higher property taxes, higher insurance, higher maintenance priced as a percentage of home value, higher utilities on more square footage, furniture for rooms she previously did not have. Real estate professionals estimate maintenance alone runs 1 to 4% annually. On a bigger house, that is thousands more per year, forever, adjusted for inflation. And here's the part that traps people. Home equity is not spendable net worth. Renee's net worth looked identical on paper. More house, less invested, same total. But one of those numbers compounds and can be sold in 3 business days. The other one costs money every month and takes 90 days and 6% to access. Net worth is not one number. It is a liquid number and an illiquid number. Most people at this milestone quietly convert the first into the second and celebrate. Maya stayed in the same house, not out of virtue. She ran the 14-year math. Here's what nobody tells you about the years between 55 and 70. There is a tax window that opens once and closes permanently. Most people sleep through it. In 2026, a married couple filing jointly pays 0% on long-term gains. If their taxable income is $98,900 or less. 0%, not a deduction, not a credit. A 0% federal rate. The standard deduction for that couple is $32,200. So gross income up to roughly $131,000 can qualify. Most people hear that and assume it is only for low-income households. It is not. It is for anyone whose taxable income drops, which happens the year you stop working. Between the last paycheck and the first Social Security check, income falls off a cliff. That cliff is not a problem. That cliff is the most valuable tax window you get. In those years, you can realize gains at 0% and immediately buy back. Your cost basis resets higher. The future tax on that money is permanently erased. You can also convert traditional retirement money to Roth at unusually low brackets. Every dollar converted at 12% is a dollar not taxed at 22 later. And it shrinks the required minimum distributions that will otherwise arrive uninvited at 73. Most people spend those years doing nothing because nothing feels like the safe choice. Then income restarts, brackets refill, and the window closes without ever announcing itself. Renee never opened it. She had an advisor charging $7,500 a year. Nobody mentioned it because the fee was for managing assets, not managing taxes. That is the difference between asset management and planning. Most people buy the wrong one. Maya opened the window in 3 separate years. She realized gains at 0%. She converted $60,000 to Roth across those years at low brackets. None of it was clever. All of it was calendar work. Boring, scheduled, unglamorous calendar work. Here's what actually happens to most people. They optimize returns and ignore sequencing. Returns are the part you cannot control. Tax sequencing is the part you can. One is a market outcome. The other is a decision you make in a chair. Here's the part almost nobody has said out loud about this specific milestone. At $750,000, you have already been fired, quietly, without notice. You were fired as the primary earner of your own net worth. The market replaced you. Your contributions were the engine for 22 years. Now they are a rounding error. $20,000 a year against $52,500 of expected growth. You are no longer the builder. You are the custodian. The job description changed completely. And nobody hands you the new job description because there is no ceremony for this. Builders are rewarded for action. Custodians are rewarded for restraint. They are opposite skills. Ask any custodian what they did last year. The good ones say almost nothing. That answer would get you fired from any other job in the world. Here it is the answer that pays $898,000. Everything that got you to $750,000 now works against you. The discipline, the optimizing, the hunger to do more, all of it becomes a liability. This is why so many discipline savers stall between $750,000 and $1 million. It is not a market problem. It is a role problem nobody told them about. They keep managing an account that no longer needs managing. They keep proving themselves. And every proof costs a fee, a tax event, or a trade at the wrong moment. Here is the quotable version. At $750,000, you stopped building the money. You became the person who can lose it. That is the whole transition in one sentence. Most people never accept the demotion because the demotion feels like giving up. It is not giving up. It is the highest paid decision available to you at this level. Maya's 14 years of doing almost nothing produced $898,000. Divide that by 14 years, $64,000 a year for restraint. That is more than half her salary earned by not acting on her own opinions. There is no job in the country that pays $64,000 for stillness. Except this one, and it only exists after you cross this specific number. Before $750,000, stillness pays almost nothing. Effort pays everything. After it, the ratio inverts permanently, and it never inverts back. Not once. That is the counterintuitive part. The milestone is not a finish line at all. It is a role change, and the promotion looks exactly like being told to stop. So what do you actually do the moment your net worth crosses $750,000? Write your own crossover page. 1 page, 3 sentences. Nobody needs to see it. Sentence 1 names the truth. Your contributions no longer drive this. The market does. Sentence 2 names the job. Your work now is to not interrupt the compounding. Sentence 3 names the rule. Any decision reducing your invested balance requires a written paragraph. Then build the buffer. 2 years of expenses, deliberately earning less, deliberately boring. Then cap the employer stock at 5%. Then price every fee in dollars. Then mark the tax window on a calendar in the years your income drops. That is the entire plan. It fits on 1 page and takes an evening. It is worth $898,000 over 14 years on these numbers. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's sales pitch. If this was useful, subscribe to Maya Wealth and hit the notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every day. No hustle culture, no shame, just the numbers, run all the way to the end. One last thing, because it is the part people remember 6 months from now. $750,000 is not 75% of $1 million. It is the first number large enough to destroy itself without any help from you. Protect it by doing less, not more. That is the whole assignment. The money is finally working. Your only job now is to stop interrupting it.